This is Said Podcast. Got Drew on the line tonight. We're going to be doing our AFC and NFC playoff predictions, going 1 through 7 in the seeding in both conferences. And then we both made our playoff round predictions, our championship game winners, and the Super Bowl matchup and Super Bowl winner. So we've been looking forward to this all week. And I've been excited to talk with you, Drew, about this. And we're getting so close to the season. Thursday night, we've got NFL football, and we had our first little appetizer with some college football this weekend. How you doing, man? How was your weekend? And how stoked are you on this season?
Dude, I'm doing great. My weekend has been fantastic as well. As you had alluded to, college football was back week 1. I got a bunch of bets in, including taking Georgia in the points and Penn State on the points, and both of them came through. I think a lot of people overthought those games, but they did what they did. And so I'm starting off this betting season on a hot streak right now. So I'm super pumped just to have watched football. As you also said, that we got football in 4 days, which is what we're here for. It just couldn't be more excited about the potential of this season, all the storylines. We're going to be breaking down the playoff picture tonight, which I'm super excited to get into. I think there's going to be a lot of good teams, a lot of them from last year too, but I just think this season is just it's going to be great. We got the whole Swift mania. Can Kansas City repeat? And then we have, a couple fringe teams that can play spoiler. So I'm just really excited to talk football tonight and get into this playoff predictions episode.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm looking forward to breaking it all down, and we'll start with our conference seeding right after this. Playoff predictions for the AFC and the NFC. We've already done our division previews for both the AFC and NFC, so now we might as well just kind of seed all of the teams 1 through 7 and play out a hypothetical playoff situation. And Drew, I'll let you go first and tell me your AFC 1 through 7, and let's set up that playoff bracket.
All right. Sounds good, my man. I'm going to go off the top here, getting the bye in the wild card spot is going to be Kansas City. I just think.
So Kansas City, the number 1 overall seed?
Number 1 overall, Kansas City, the two-time defending champs here. Just feels like they're on a mission this year to do what history has never been done before. They have the whole Swift mania behind them. They have an easier division. I just think it's set up for them to get that number 1 seed. Number 2 is controversial. I'm not going to lie. And it requires a lot of risk, to be quite honest with you, because you just don't know how it's going to pan out. But I'm going with the Jets. I'm going to say they win the AFC East. And I'm only putting them over the next team because the next team has a very difficult schedule. And that's going to be the Texans. So number 3 is going to be the Houston Texans. Their schedule is just brutal, but I believe in this team. I think Stroud's going to just get better and better. DeMeco Ryans is going to learn from some of his coaching mistakes last year. This team is loaded front to back, just like the Jets are. And so at the number 3 position, I'm going with the Houston Texans. Number 4, another controversial pick, but I think people understand it as well, is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. Under Joe Burrow, when he plays a whole season healthy, this man is one of the best in the NFL. And yes, they lost some pieces, but they also gained some pieces, especially on that offensive line. And I just believe in Joe Burrow. I think they have the easiest schedule in the whole AFC North. So just because of that, I'm going with them as the division winners. And then number 5 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. This team, I do think, will take a step back this year just a little bit. 14 wins is a lot of wins to get again. I think they just come off that high horse a little bit, but still a fantastic team. And I got them at number 5 there. So number 6 is another controversial play because this team can't play in cold weather, which is why they're going to be an easy out in that first round. But I'm going with the Dolphins. I believe in the firepower of this offense. I think their defense is lackluster. They have some health issues on the defense that they certainly need to get right going into the season. But I think that first half of the season for them is really, really nice and tasty for them to really take hold and win a lot of games right there. And then number 7, sticking with the AFC East, juggernaut of a division. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. It's hard for me to count out Josh Allen. I know Diggs is gone, but I don't think that matters. I think what does matter, though, is that their small linebacker field, the loss of Milano out for the season, safeties are unproven. They do have good cornerbacks, but they also have that other guy named Josh Allen, and I just think they're going to round out that last spot. I will say honorable mentions. I have the Jags and the Browns on the outside looking in. I just think those teams are going to be pretty good, but they're not quite going to get there. It's just hard for me to put them over the Bills, knowing what Josh Allen is capable of.
Right on, man. I like it because I definitely, you and I definitely are seeing this season a lot differently. So I like that. This is going to be a fun exercise. I definitely can see Kansas City being a 1 seed, but I'm with them this year. I'm kind of nervous about whether or not they go balls to the wall with Kelsey. I mean, I just feel like they may try to coast through parts of their schedule, and that's why I've got Baltimore ahead of them. Obviously, you and I have very different views on Baltimore. I've got Baltimore as my number 1 overall seed. Kansas City's my 2 seed. I've got Buffalo in the 3 seed. I feel like in that AFC East, I have the Jets making it as a wild card, but I don't know. Until proven otherwise, I am going to trust the Bills. I don't take the Dolphins seriously enough to think that they can. I think that AFC in general is going to be a really tough slog. I think that there's going to be teams. I think all the teams that make the playoffs in the AFC are going to be double-digit winners. I think you're going to be able to get like a 9-8 or potentially 8-9 in the NFC, but in the AFC, it's got to be at least 10, 11 wins. And so my 4 seed is going to be the most controversial. I think that, and this is going to be such a homer pick, I know, but I think the AFC South. I think you're going to have multiple teams that have like around the 9 to 10 win mark, and I guess I'm just really sipping a lot of Kool-Aid. But I think that the Titans-Texans game at the end of the season, Week 18 in Tennessee, could be for the division. And, I'm putting Tennessee in as at my 4 seed. 5 is the Jets, 6 Cincy, and then 7 is the Chargers. I've got the Chargers going just because Jim Harbaugh, everywhere he's gone, he gets his team to the playoffs his first year there. And, Herbert's foot scares me a little bit, but I feel like ultimately the Chargers make it as that final wild card team. So our AFCs are very different. Obviously, I'm not as high on the Texans, but I think it'll be. Obviously, I got to be a little bit of a homer with my AFC South pick, but I just feel like the schedule for the Texans and Titans and that whole division, they have to play the NFC North, so that's a tough division. Packers, Lions, Bears, and Vikings. So every one of those teams in that division are going to have a tough one, and I just think that I don't know. I just don't think the Texans are. That division in general, I feel like is just going to be what it has been, which is teams struggling to get out of that 9-10 win range. So that's where I'm going with that. How much of a shameless homer am I with that pick, Drew?
I mean, that's ballsy. I haven't heard that one yet in all of the football circles that I have subscribe to or talk about. I certainly enjoy the optimism around the Titans this year. I have said this before. Bill Callahan coming over from Cleveland is a huge bonus for the Tennessee Titans this year. Will Levis is just the biggest question mark of all of that, but they certainly do have talent on that squad. And as you alluded to, that division is just so cutthroat, which is why I only have one team from that division even making the playoffs, because the schedule gods are just it's just really, 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 really rough. But, I think Tennessee is in theory like 2 or 3 years away right now from really making a push to that playoff caliber team. But at the same time, I should preface this whole episode anyway, is that everybody's one injury away from this whole playoff prediction thing just blowing up in our face anyway. So, this is a huge grain of salt. It's more of a fun exercise to do, but I can't fault you. Knowing what that division is, you look at the Colts. They have a great coach. They have a great roster, but can Anthony Richardson, pick up where he left off last year and really do some damage there? And then you have the Jaguars, who I feel like on paper, their squad, their roster is just not that impressive. It's going to be heavily reliant on Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
So I think a lot of these teams in that division, they split wins with each other. I'm just going with the Texans because I just love the talent they have, and I think personally, because I've seen a little bit of Will Levis last year, seen some Anthony Richardson, and I've obviously seen enough of Trevor Lawrence. I just think Stroud is the best quarterback in that division, and oftentimes in NFL football at this level, right? At this level, you just kind of follow the good quarterback play. So, I also think 10 wins for any team in this division is going to be a struggle. Their schedules are so hard.
Yeah, they have to take on the NFC North, which is going to be tough. And Houston's got that first place schedule this year. They have to play the Chiefs, Bills, Lions, Packers. They've got I think they have the Niners crazy as well, and the Ravens. So yeah, the Texans have a really tough schedule. So that I'm ultimately just looking at it as I don't think Tennessee is that good or that much better than them. I just feel like it's one of those situations where the schedule could play into the have that final game of the season being something that matters.
Which is exactly why I have the Bengals winning their division, only because the Ravens have a very tough schedule. They go up against a lot of juggernauts this season, and I just like a healthy Joe Burrow with a layup of a schedule. They got that fourth place schedule this year that I think it bodes well for them to make it into that number one seed in the North. So that's kind of my logic around why I picked the Bengals to get over the Ravens. But as we continue on through this bracket, there will be a little surprise, a little left turn on this action here tonight. But as of right now, I just think the Bengals are going to win that division just because of the schedule alone. I think that the schedule is a huge indicator of what teams are going to, what their outlook will be this season.
Yeah. All right. So in the NFC, give me your 1 through 7.
So in the NFC, I'm going with the Lions over the Eagles for the number one seed.
Interesting. Okay.
This is a little bit of a homer pick just because I'm kind of a bandwagon fan of the Lions. I like what they're doing. I like what they're about. It's a tough division that they play in too, but I just think the Lions have the talent to get this done. I know Jahmyr Gibbs is already hurt with a hamstring, but Montgomery's going to fill in really nice there for a little bit. But they just have the talent, and I think they're continuing to put the pieces together to get better and better each year. I think this whole coaching squad, who hasn't changed, is going to learn from their mistakes. They're going to get a little bit better. And so I'm just a believer in the Lions this year. I know the Green Bay is in the mix. I know Chicago's in the mix, even the Vikings. But for right now, man, I'm sold on the Lions this season. So I'm going with them, number one, to get the bye. Number two, I'm going with the Eagles. I just think the Eagles roster top to bottom is one of the best in football, if not the best in football. And I think they get out of that division pretty well. and it's really not that hard of a division for them when you look at the talent discrepancy. So
For
I'm
sure.
going number two with the Eagles. Number three, I'm going with the Niners. I know we have talked about this of the Niners taking a downgrade this year, and I think that is completely possible and feasible. But they're still the Niners. They're still well coached. They still got talent everywhere around the ball. They secured Ayuk, and he's coming back. They paid him a lot of money, so he better ball out. But the Niners are just they've been tried and true for the last couple seasons, and I just don't see that changing this year. And so I have them as number three. Number four, because we have to have a division winner. For me, that's going to be the Falcons. Um, I'm just not sold on the Bucks. Bucks lost their offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach at Carolina. Yep. I think that's a big deal for Baker Mayfield. He also is having aging receivers. Their offensive line isn't that great, and they also don't have great pass rush. And so I'm just not a big believer in the Bucks this year, and so I'm going to unfortunately tie my horses to the Falcons, who I think from a roster construction standpoint have a really good one. I don't know from the head coaching standpoint what we're going to get out of him, but I just think that division is kind of a layup. It's the worst division in all football, and so for me, I just have the Falcons coming out as top dogs in that division. Next, I got Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers, talent-wise, is really, really good. Jordan Love is going to improve this year. He looked great last year, especially at the end of the season. He's going to hopefully pick up where he left off. And so it's just hard for me to leave the Green Bay Packers out of the wild card spot, who I think is just a really tough football team to play. And then next, number 6, a little bit of a surprising pick. I was torn and losing sleep over this a little bit between them and the Rams, but I'm going Seahawks here. I just think the Seahawks, despite Geno Smith, have a fantastic construction of a roster from front to back. Their defense is really, really deadly. Their defensive line is stout, and I think their receiver core and the running back room is just really, really good. So I think the Seahawks sneak in there and top the Rams to get that wild card spot. And then my final pick, which was a hard one for me to throw in there, was either the Rams or the Cowboys, and I'm just going to go with the Cowboys. It would be hard for me to leave America's team out of this conversation, though. I'm not high on them this year, but I do believe in Dak in terms of his heart, his grit, and his willingness to put this team on his back, which is exactly what he's going to have to do this season. But he's a good regular season quarterback. I mean, he had the same numbers identical to Patrick Mahomes last year. One won the Super Bowl and one didn't. So I think this Cowboys is going to sneak in, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams got in instead of the Cowboys. But I had to pick someone, and so I'm just going to tie my horse to the Cowboys here and see what happens.
Right on, man. Yeah, we were a little bit closer on the NFC. I had the Eagles and the Lions flipped. I have Eagles being as the 1 seed, Detroit is the 2. I have Seattle winning the NFC West over the Niners. Something about the Niners. They've got all the talent in the world and everything, but all the vibes around the Niners. Ricky Pearsall just got shot.
He got shot.
They've had all of this issue, all of the offseason drama with Ayuk, and they still haven't signed Trent Williams. They still got to get him paid. I don't know, just the vibe check with the Niners. I'm going Seahawks and to win the NFC West, and then I've got the Bucs winning the NFC South. I agree with you that's the worst division in football, but I'm trusting the Bucs a little bit more than the Falcons. I feel like the Falcons are getting a lot of hype over a 40-year-old quarterback coming off a torn ACL, similar to the Jets. So, Kirk Cousins, I feel like I don't know. I'm just a little nervous with that. So I'm gonna trust Baker and the Bucs, and fifth seed, I've got the Packers with you. I'm there with you on the Packers. I feel like they're going to be really good this year. I have the Niners in the sixth seed, flipped exactly with your NFC West prediction. And then I'm also going to go Cowboys as the seventh seed. Ultimately, I feel like the Rams could be there. Just a little bit nervous with that defense being affected by Aaron Donald being gone. People are just kind of not even really talking too much about that being a factor. I feel like that could be. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Dallas. But I am down on Dallas as well. I think everybody's down on Dallas. They easily could not be in the playoff picture. Maybe potentially the Commanders in this spot. I don't know. I feel like the NFC, it's a lot more wide open in the NFC, and I feel like that seventh spot could end up being like a wacky team being in that spot if it's not the Cowboys. Maybe somebody nobody's expecting. Neither one of us had the Bears. A lot of people are really all over the Bears. I feel like that's partially the hype from Hard Knocks and partially, Chicago's fans they're definite lunatics when it comes to being homers, and they always think their team's going to be awesome. So I'm just kind of surprised that neither one of us really are buying into the Bears.
Well, yeah, I will say this. I do think the Bears are just about 2 or 3 years away. They are certainly building momentum. Rookie quarterback on the first year is just, Stroud is kind of an outlier. That typically doesn't happen. It's really hard. Caleb Williams does look like a generational talent, though. I'll give you that. These offenses take a little bit of time in the early seasons to start to gel and get the legs underneath them. And I just think Chicago coming out right away is just going to struggle a little bit, which will put them behind in the win column. But I certainly think they could be there. But I just don't foresee that happen. I think they're just a couple years away from really making some splashes in that division.
Yeah, definitely agree. And, that's really an interesting thing to talk about, too, just in general with a lot of these teams. We always talk about this every year that we've done this podcast. September is essentially the preseason because it's when you're actually getting full games of your dudes. So you want to make it out of September 500 or better and not have any major injuries. That's basically how how your season's going to shake out properly. So that's really like when you can, with a lot of these predictions, we could be ripping up all of this shortly into October.
Absolutely.
But you can usually get a feel for how teams are going to be. Rarely are teams completely terrible or completely juggernauts in September that sustain that. Usually you just want to get through September, get your offense clicking, and then start setting up for when the season actually starts to matter, which is November, December, and that's when you want to be playing the best ball. So, I'm so excited to see these games get started this week just because, I don't think any teams – I feel like back in the day that teams would at least play like full first halves or full games in the preseason. Now you don't even get that. So I'm just excited to see what a lot of these offenses look like to start the season and see what they're actually – what their actual schemes are going to be, So I'm super stoked about that.
Yeah, 100%. Me too, man. I think it's going to be very, very interesting.
For sure. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our matchups and our championships and Super Bowl champions right after this. So let's start off with our playoff brackets. So we'll start in the AFC again. So, Drew, your 2-7 matchup is Jets-Bills, and then your 3-6 is Texans-Dolphins, and your 4-5 is Bengals-Ravens, which this would be a fucking banger of a playoff if it shows up like this. And then just to level set here, I would have Chiefs-Chargers as the 2-7 matchup, Bills-Bengals is the 3-6, and then Titans-Jets as the 4-5, which would be also completely insane if any of that happened. But, okay, starting with your work us through your bracket and then up to your championship. So Jets-Bills, who you got with the Bills traveling to the Meadowlands?
The Meadowlands of New York. Yeah. So in a weird sense, man, I am so down on the Bills this year. So I got the Jets winning this game. Their roster is so good. It really really is. It's just the biggest question mark is how is it all going to come together? Can
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers
absolutely.
play like Aaron Rodgers? And I'm telling you all right now, just it's a wild card. Like I know it. It is a gamble, and it's one I'm willing to make this year because I'm it's a weird thing about the universe. If they got screwed last year with Aaron Rodgers going down, I just can't see it happening again. It's possible. It's kind of like playing roulette. Like if keeps hitting on black, I'm going to start playing red. And so at some point, the Jets just have to come out of their hole that they've been in for years and years and years, and they have the roster construction to do it. And I just don't think the Bills defense is going to be that great. They're not going to have great pass rushers to get to the quarterback. And their number one receiver is Shakur, like and Keon Coleman, who's unproven at the moment. Like that just doesn't do much for me. So I'm taking the Jets over the Bills in this game. The Texans over the Finns. To me, this is an easy one. As soon as the Finns get into the playoffs, just forget about it. I just think they're going to erode.
They'd be indoors though in this one, so like
they would be.
In this matchup, they could maybe get out and run.
Right, but so can the Texans. They both have firepower, and if you're going to give me, Stroud versus Tua, I'm taking Stroud all day long, and it would be a home game for the Texans. So, I just like the Texans here. I just think this plays well for them. I don't know how Finns match up against the Texans, even though it is on turf. It would be a fast-paced game, I think. But ultimately, I'm just higher on the Texans than I am with the Finns because I barely have the Finns even getting into playoffs to begin with. So I'm just taking them at that spot. And then next, high on the Bengals this year, division winners. But I'm going with the Ravens. I think the Ravens are still a great team. I don't think they're going to get to 14 wins this year, but they're going to be on a mission. They're coached great. They have good defense. Lamar Jackson is a playmaker. And I don't know if the Bengals defense, who, lost DJ Reader this year, which is just a tough blow, I think, personally, is going to have enough firepower to stop the Ravens. So that's where I'm going there.
Okay, right on. For my first round, I've got the Chiefs over the Chargers in Kansas City. I think that the Chargers, they'll be an upstart team this year. I think they'll set the foundation for where they're going to be next year as they add more playmakers to their receiving core. But I think the ground and pound style of Jim Harbaugh, this is going to be a very, very similar team to what like the Vrabel teams in Tennessee have been. They've already got like 7 players from the Titans, which is pretty hilarious. So I feel like the Chiefs kind of take care of business there. The Bengals Bills is my other first round matchup. Bengals traveling to Buffalo. I've got Buffalo exacting revenge on the Bengals from 2 years ago where they absolutely got their asses stomped by the Bengals. So I've got the Bills beating the Bengals in round 1. And then I have Titans-Jets. Titans hosting the Jets down in Tennessee. I'm going Titans here. Again, this sounds like complete craziness. I know Drew's laughing. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just buying in a lot to the Titans. But like I watched this podcast the other day with L'Jarius Sneed. He was on the Pivot, and he was saying that they were like, "Oh man, Stephon Diggs was saying that he wanted to get traded to the Texans because he didn't want you to be able to run away from him." And L'Jarius Sneed was like, "Dude, motherfucker, better be ready for us. People are going to be sleeping on the Titans, and we're gonna come out and kick some ass," which was pretty interesting to hear Sneed saying. So I don't know. I'm going Titans round 1 win over the Jets in this hypothetical scenario. All right, let's move over to the NFC and our first round matchups in the NFC. So you've got to run this down. You've got Philly hosting the Lions, which again, banger. Niners, Seahawks, banger, and Falcons, Packers, which is interesting. So from those matchups, what do you got?
Well, that would be interesting, but it's actually I have the Eagles in the second place position there. So the Eagles are actually going to play the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the Eagles, Cowboys. Okay. This podcast is going off the rails. All right. Eagles, Cowboys. I got the Eagles. I mean, stomping the Cowboys, which would be, anytime the Eagles play the Cowboys, it's must-watch television. So, Eagles come out on top on that one. Their roster construction is just much better, and I think they're built for the playoffs. And then next, Seahawks versus the Niners. I'm taking the Niners. I think the Seahawks are just a couple years away as well. Their quarterback doesn't do much for me. Brock Purdy obviously is just, he's been in that system for a little bit now, and I know what he is. I feel he's more predictable at this point, but I do love the Seahawks this year. I love their talent and their roster, but I think the Niners win this one. And then Green Bay against the Falcons. To me, Green Bay wins that one handily. The Falcons just playing that weak division. Kirk Cousins is getting older. I just think Green Bay has the up-and-coming talent on that, and I think Josh Jacobs can run all over them, and Jordan Love can throw all over the field on the Falcons as well, even though they did shore up that defense a lot better. I'm a big believer in Green Bay this year. I think they're going to be a really, really tough squad and a really tough out in the playoffs. So that's my three games there.
Right on. I've got Cowboys, Lions in my first round rematch from last year's week 16 or 17 game where the Lions kind of got screwed because of that reporting eligible thing. I've got Lions over Cowboys there easily in Detroit. Seahawks, Niners. I have Seahawks winning that game against the Niners. In my scenario, I've got them hosting the Niners up in Seattle. And then Tampa Bay, Green Bay, I've got Tampa Bay moving on to the second round for a date with Philly. And, I just feel like every year there's some team that it comes out of nowhere and you're not shouldn't be in the playoff field. It happens every single year. I feel like Tampa Bay could be that team in the NFC. So
can't hate on it. You're right. I mean, there is these surprise teams every year. This is the NFL. All these guys are really great at what they do. And like we talked about earlier, every team's one injury away from this all changing anyway. And if you have an injury from another team, I could definitely see the Bucks squeezing in there and making a little bit of a run.
All right. So our divisional round matchups, you're sitting there with Baltimore, KC, and Houston at the Jets. And then I've got Tennessee at Baltimore and Buffalo at Kansas City. So
hell yeah.
Bangers. So Baltimore, KC, you're going KC?
Nope, I'm going Ravens.
Ooh, okay.
The three-peat is not happening this year. I think the Ravens are going to be out for blood in that game. It's going to be a rematch of Week 1 of this year. It's going to set the precedent for the whole year. I know the KC is very focused this year, especially coming up into this game because they lost the first week last year, which obviously didn't affect them all that much. But I just think the Ravens here are going to get revenge on Kansas City and learn from their putrid mistakes that they made against them last year in the playoffs. So I'm going Ravens. I think they're really good. I really do. I think they're a great team. And then Jets, Texans. I'm going with the Texans. I think bus stops there at Jets. I can only take that team so far. I mean, it's already bad enough. I got them as the second seed in the AFC, but I believe that the Texans will be more battle tested come that time in the playoffs if they get there, and I really like them in that spot.
All right. Yeah. So you've got Houston, Baltimore in your championship game. I've got Baltimore over Tennessee and then Kansas City over Buffalo. I've got a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game set up, and this time it would be in Baltimore. Well, actually, it would be in Baltimore again. So you have Ravens at Texans, and I've got Chiefs at Ravens. So in the NFC side, you have matchups of Packers-Lions and Niners-Eagles.
Yep. Yeah, two great games there.
Those are two awesome games. And I've got Lions-Seahawks and Philly in the Bucks. So your divisional round games, who you got?
Yeah, so here, Green Bay versus the Lions. I think the Lions beat them. This is where Green Bay, I think, stumbles a little bit. Lions show their teeth and dominate them with what they do. Jared Goff, I think he's going to find his tight end. I think he's going to get that ball out to Jahmyr Gibbs running all over the field. And I love their pass catchers here, and I love their defense. But Green Bay, man, they're a tough out. I could easily see Green Bay winning that game. That was a hard decision for me. But ultimately, I'm just going to keep riding that Lions train all the way to pay dirt, hopefully. But, yeah, somebody's got to win that game. I just think it's the Lions. I mean, Green Bay, it's just not their time yet, but it's coming. But I love the Lions in that spot. Eagles, Niners, going with the Eagles.
Okay.
I love their roster. I love their coaches. Not Sirianni, hate that guy, but I do like their upgrades in Kellen Moore and Nick Fangio. So I trust the Eagles to beat the Niners in that spot.
Right on. Right. Just a side note, right now I kind of feel like we're doing like March Madness, like playing through a bracket in March Madness. Like that's 100%. how far along through it where we're talking about hypothetical matchups. But I really do hope some of these happen because these would be fucking bangers for sure. I've got Detroit hosting Seattle. I've got Detroit winning that one. Seattle has been kind of the thorn in the Lions' side the past couple of years. They've beat them 2 years in a row. So hopefully this time the Lions finally can handle that mobile quarterback and get that job done and go on to the championship game. And then I have the Eagles beating the Bucks in Philly, taking care of business after the Bucks did them last year in Tampa Bay, and setting up Detroit and Philly for my championship game. And you've got
Detroit, Philly.
Yes, we both got Detroit, Philly.
Detroit,
yours is in Detroit, and mine's going to be in Philly. Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And then, let's go. Let's just start with that one. Who do you have winning that, and who's your going to the Super Bowl for you?
Yeah, man. So I work with a lot of Eagles fans. I live in Eagles territory. I think they're very excited this year, but they're the Eagles, and somehow they'll end up fucking this up. And I just believe in Dan Campbell eating some kneecaps. I'm going with the Lions over the Eagles. Take the Lions to the Super Bowl. It's their year. It's freaking go.
Dude, I am right there with you. I have the Detroit going into Philadelphia and winning and going to the Super Bowl. It's fun. It's insane to think that 3 years ago when we first started doing this podcast, to think that at that time picking the Lions unironically to be the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, it's pretty wild to see how far they've come in 3 years. So, yeah, we're both picking the Lions unironically to be the NFC champions. And then the AFC, so you've got Houston hosting Baltimore. Who do you have representing in the AFC side?
Yeah, this is a tough one, but ultimately I think, it's going to be what we saw last year in the playoffs. I think the Ravens are they're more experienced at this point. And so I'm taking the Ravens over the Texans. I think the Texans, if they make it to this game, are going to be banged up because of that schedule they play. I mean, obviously the AFC North is super brutal too, but I think the Ravens are built for this type of a playoff game. And so I got the Ravens and the Lions going to the Super Bowl, baby. I think that would be a great Super Bowl matchup. Ultimately, I just don't want Kansas City back in there. I'm just sick of it. I like parity. And I think there's a lot of great teams this year that are just as good, if not better, than Kansas City. So they are not in my Super Bowl prediction outcomes. So Ravens Lions. I mean, what a great game.
Dude, it's so funny that we had very differing paths to get here, but I also have Ravens Lions. I have Detroit and Baltimore in the championship or in the Super Bowl. I have Baltimore beating Kansas City in Baltimore, getting the job done, and setting up a matchup with Dan Campbell and the Lions. It's crazy to think that with as different we were with the paths there, we both end up with the same exact Super Bowl matchup, which is pretty wild. And
really wild.
It's insanely wild to think that we both ended up with those matchups based off of what we started with, and then ultimately, so who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
Give me Detroit Lions, baby.
We're both on the Lions.
It's their year.
That is wild.
I just think this coaching squad is going to learn how to win these tight games. I think they'll be battle tested. I know they might have a problem with Lamar running the ball and Derrick Henry if he's healthy at that point in the season. But the Lions, they can beat you in a variety of ways, and they will also have the defense to stand up to the Ravens. And we know too, even as good as coached as the Ravens are, they always seem to go limping into these games because their defense is always injured, and you can't predict injuries, but you almost have to in this hypothetical scenario because it's so crazy to try to guess this at this point in the season when we haven't even watched a single snap of football.
Exactly.
It's really, really tough, but it's fun. I really enjoy talking about this stuff. But yeah, the Ravens, they'll stand up here, but man, I think the Lions win by a field goal. With Campbell's aggressive nature, I think one of these times his aggressiveness is going to pay off and really put teams on their heels. And I could see this going in the Super Bowl where he's just like, fuck it, it's all or nothing, just doing some crazy shit and risking it all, and it might pay off because they certainly have the talent to do so.
Yeah, that's the one thing that he does have to do is try to find out that he has to be a little bit smarter with when he pulls his nuts out. He has to have some times where he can just concede and kick field goals. But I hope with all of the predictions that we've made, I just hope if the Lions win the Super Bowl, that would be the coolest fucking thing ever. I feel like that city would be so awesome for the city. I
agree.
I toyed with putting in this hypothetical situation Lions Bills, which would also be that would be a banger of a Super Bowl too. Yeah. I just don't want the Chiefs. I really don't want the Chiefs. I think Lions and Bills, Lions and Ravens, Lions and Texans all would be fun. Lions representing the NFC would be awesome. That would be the coolest thing ever if they're actually in, and if they get a Super Bowl victory. It would be.
I will say this, man, as cool as it would be, I could also see, just because of the talent of what the Eagles have, I could easily see them getting into the Super Bowl this year. Team is loaded. That team is loaded, and if they can learn how to play together, they could be very deadly. But I'm riding that Lions wagon all the way to the championship. So
hell yeah, man!
It's going to be awesome if they can do it.
It will be, and that the Eagles roster is solid top to bottom. I could easily see them being involved, like you were saying, but I think all this to be said, man, I'm just super stoked for this season. I think at this point in the season, the optimism is obviously at an all-time high. Hopefully, some of these teams, some of these predictions, we know that probably, if we're lucky, 60% of our teams that we picked make that actually are in their correct spots. That's the beauty of the NFL, is it is so up and down with most of these teams. That's why the Chiefs, potentially going for a three-peat this year is so rare, just because the NFL is kind of filled with parity, even though it sometimes doesn't feel like it. But I feel like this year could be kind of that opening for some new blood. You in your situation, and a lot of people are picking the Texans to be fighting for an opportunity to get into the Super Bowl. So this is going to be a fun year. I feel like there's a lot of optimism, and it seems like I'm the most excited I've been for an NFL season in a long time, I would say. I feel like this year's going to be fun.
It's going to be really fun. I will say, I mean, the optimism is at an all-time high, especially coming from your side of the table. It's off the charts high. But I think the Seahawks pick of mine is probably like my most like outside the line pick that I have. I certainly think yours is definitely more riskier, more gamble-ish. Mine's a lot more chalk. Like I just feel like, especially my AFC picks, and I think I think a lot of people have those teams at least going into the playoffs. They may be in different orders or whatnot, but I feel like mine is a lot more safer than yours, which is awesome. It's great fodder to talk about right now. And
for sure.
But yeah, my most aggressive pick is Seahawks.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I for whatever reason, I'm just super optimistic on the Titans this year. I feel like usually I'm pretty pessimistic on them. I think you can hold me accountable to that and tell the listeners that I'm not usually Mr. Optimism with the Titans. So I don't know what it is. I just feel like the NFL never goes as chalky as you would think at the start of the season. I mean, this time last year we had the Jaguars in the playoffs. We had the Texans being one of the worst teams in the NFL. So this is the time of the season where there's some team that we're not even talking about or thinking about is going to be better than we all expected and make a playoff push. And I guess I'm just kind of rolling the dice and saying it's hopefully the Titans, because I feel like there's pieces to the team and changes to the team that they were so bad in the offensive line last year. They were so unimaginative with their play calling last year. Their offensive play calling was terrible. Their defense, their secondary was terrible. They had two of the worst corners in the league. They've upgraded that with L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie. And I don't know. I just feel like there's so many changes, and Brian Callahan actually wants to play, a drop back pass like West Coast style offense. They've got a lot of playmakers. It's just going to come down to, can Will Levis distribute it to those guys? But I'm going with the Titans being that random team that makes it.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see how this shakes out, man. I honestly just cannot wait for Thursday to get here. That game is going to be awesome, and just knowing that we are on the doorsteps of a brand new season this year, and all the storylines that have led up to this could all kind of disappear once we get into the season. But it's just going to be, I just think there's just going to be a lot of great talent this year with a lot of different storylines, a lot of new faces and new places. It's just going to be, I think it's one of the more intriguing starts to the seasons that I can remember. I just think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how everything shakes out. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think the biggest pieces are, you have the kickoff change. You have some big name people that were, we get to see Derrick Henry in a Ravens uniform the first night of the season. We have players that were long standing and their situations all seem to shift within this past year. And, we have 5 top-tier quarterbacks drafted in the first round, and we're going to see at least 3 of them start the season in week 1. So that's also another exciting piece of this year. So I feel like there's a lot of fun and optimism to start the year. And as we've always said, please don't let the refs completely fucking sail or dive and completely ruin the season for us.
Right, because they're capable.
They're completely capable for taking all of the fun out of the season real fucking quick. Hopefully they don't do that, but yeah, I'm super stoked for the season to start, and we're going to be back later this week to make our picks for week 1, which is going to be awesome. I can't wait to get into that with you. It's going to be so fucking fun, and we're only a few days away, man. It's almost here.
It's almost here. That episode is going to be really exciting once we get back into that groove, because that's where I really love doing the podcast, is really breaking down the games and picking spreads and picking, the winners of every game, because it's so much fun. And once you get to see things with your eyes, it's just, I feel it's just,
gives you
have
something
a better
to work
grasp.
off of. Yeah.
Right. It gives you a better grasp of things. And Yeah, I couldn't be more excited about that. So yeah, that episode is dropping here soon, and it's going to be at a great week one. I mean, gosh, the freaking game schedule of week one is absolutely bananas.
Thursday, Friday, and Sunday and Monday.
Oh
Yeah, it's going to be awesome,
and
man.
the matchups though, the matchups are just absolutely wonderful, and hopefully the Eagles and Packers, who we both have going into the playoffs, hopefully they can make it out of Brazil without getting shot or killed.
Yeah, hopefully they can. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they make it out of there safe. I saw the Packers are going to be wearing green, which I thought.
Oh boy.
So that could be a problem for them. But yeah, that will be an interesting game on Friday night. But everybody, we appreciate everybody taking the time to listen. It's been this one's definitely was a fun one and more interesting one to talk about, and it's definitely but we appreciate everybody taking the time to listen. We hope you subscribe, rate, review, comment, do any of those things. Check us out on YouTube at the said podcast, on Twitter at the said podcast. So we're on all types of different social media. We definitely want you guys to check us out, so like and subscribe. And we look forward to dropping our next episode, and we appreciate you taking the time to listen. Until then, peace out.